La da 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 ba da ba da 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 da. Hey, didn't see you there. Uh, this is Kendall, aka Corran, and this is a very special edition of Corran in the morning. I'm going unscripted today, but we're going to talk about defensive shields. Now, defensive shields are a very important part of the Star Wars card game, and they can be intimidating, but there's no reason for them to be intimidating. They're really pretty straightforward. So, if you don't know what they are, defensive shields are basically effects that sit in your sideboard underneath an effect that lets you pull 4 of them out per game, and some of them help with rules that they probably should have been rules of the game. Some of them act almost like a ban list, and they sort of serve different functions. But I'm just gonna give you a crash course here. So I've got them. I've got every single shield listed here. Now it looks like a lot, but I have them listed under never, rarely, sometimes, and always. And I would say, I mean, as is obvious here, you're mostly almost every game you're going to play these shields that are in the always category. You probably should know the sometimes shields. If your opponent is playing a deck where the rarely shields come up, they'll probably tell you and remind you to play those shields. And if somehow these never shields come up, that's a thing too. But I'm going to focus on the always and the sometimes here. So starting at the top of the list, we have simple tricks and nonsense. Plays on table while you occupy a battleground and opponent occupies less than 2 battlegrounds. Cancel opponent's force drain at non-battleground locations and opponent's force retrieval. So simple tricks and come over here, big coward, or come here, you big coward. Do exactly the same thing. Simple tricks is the light side, coward's the dark side. You'll often play these if you want to make it a little more. If your opponent is only occupying 1 battleground, you'll pretty much always play this if they're threatening to force drain you at a non-battleground, or if they're threatening to retrieve. A tragedy has occurred, or allegations of corruption. These are your grabbers. They should be pretty much the first action you make of a game should be to pull your grabber. You can use 1 force to stack an interrupt just played here. To play any new interrupt of the same name, player must first stack it here and use +1 force for each interrupt in the stack. This prevents your opponent from playing 5 copies of It Could Be Worse and just negating damage all game. But it also can, you can use it to grab a Gick or a Hoojix if you're afraid they're going to play multiple copies or recur it, or if you've got something like, grabber. I mean, I could do a whole video on grabber strategy, but just grab something. Aim high and secret plans. If your opponent's about to retrieve force, they have to first use X force. It speaks for itself. If your opponent reveals that they're going to be retrieving, you should be playing this card. And then we have battle plan and battle order. These are pretty straightforward too. If your opponent's threatening to drain and they don't have people at a site in a system, you want to pull this. Now, your gut is going to tell you, I don't want to pull this because it makes it so that I have to pay. Plays on table unless battle plan on table. They cancel each other out. For either player to initiate a force drain, that player must first use 3 force unless they occupy a battleground site in a battleground system. But the thing is, if you're pulling it, you're making them pay first. So that's going to be to your advantage. You don't want to give them free drains. And the final one in the always column here is ultimatum and resistance. Notice all the always shields mirror each other. A lot of shields mirror each other, but this just makes it so if you occupy 3 battlegrounds or opponent occupies no battlegrounds, you lose no more than 2 force to each force drainer insert card, but we don't worry about insert cards. So if your opponent is draining for 3 and you have enough guys to spread out, you can pull these. So those 5 cards, I would say 75% of the time you could get by with just knowing those 5 shields for each side. And again, they match each other. So simple tricks. The tragedy has occurred. Aim high, battle plan, ultimatum for light side, and for dark side, allegations of corruption, battle order, Chimera, big coward, secret plans, and resistance. So now for the sometimes cards. These are cards that you should be looking for the opportunity to play. And it will come up from time to time. So don't do that again. Cancels always thinking with your stomach, ice, storm, and sand whirl. So that's gonna be a thing. I think is fanfare. I think fanfare is the dark side. Yep. So if they make your card missing, then you'll play Don't Do That Again or fanfare. You can also use it to upload an immediate effect. If you're playing like a deck that plays an immediate effect, you might be playing advantage. You might be playing something else, or if you are in a pinch late game and you need to shuffle your deck, this is a way to do it. Goldenrod and Imperial Detention. For an opponent to deploy a character, starship, or vehicle for free, they got to pay 2 force. And that is that can be key. You'll just memorize. Eventually, you'll just memorize cards that make things deploy for free. If Prophet deploys Master Luke, somebody reveals a Blizzard 4 or something like that. Just anything that is going to be deployed for free. Think about these guys. I'm just realizing that I am opening a new window every time I open a new card because I'm a professional like that. Then we have only Jedi carry that weapon and Weapon of a Sith. Basically, if you see that your opponent has weapon levitation, you'll play this card. I don't even know what it does. The other one was bigger, right? Also, Imperial Detention is your I must be allowed to speak shield, so watch out for that. Only Jedi carry that weapon. Makes it so that to steal a weapon with weapon lev, basically, opponent has to draw Destiny. It also shields entire legion of my best troops, but that doesn't matter because nobody's going to play that card. So just that. There is another. This is if you're playing against Bring Him Before Me and you don't want to give him Luke, you play There Is Another. Thrown Back. Okay. So Thrown Back and drop almost could be in the always category because you're always thinking about it. This is the reason that you don't draw past 14 cards. At the end of turn, if the opponent has 15 or more cards in hand, may use 2 force to shuffle all but 9 into use pile. If Grim Tosh or Thrown Back just targeted your hand, you can reveal 2 cards from hand that can't be removed or checked. So these are sort of, it's like a built-in pseudo Grimtosh or Monarch, and they are the reason that this card and this card are basically may as well be blanked because these are the bad Grimtosh shields and those are the good Grimtosh shields. So just mostly you just need to know to watch out for those for when your opponent draws more than 14 cards. you might want to play it, and your opponent will play it on you. Do or do not. Also, wise advice is going to be in that same thing. Sense and alter are so good that you have 2 shields per side. And for dark side, it is oppressive enforcement, and there is no try. You usually want the one that makes your opponent lose 2 force, which I always forget which one it is, but it looks like it's there is no try. The other one is going to be do or do not. Makes them lose 2 force. But only do this if you see your opponent having sense or alter. A lot of people will pull the sense shields just like almost automatically if they see a Jedi in the deck. I would advise against that. So there we are, 11 minutes into this. And again, I would say watch the first 5 minutes. That's going to be 75% of the time. What we've gone over this far is probably 99% of the time. These are the only shields that you'll need. So like we're at 11 minutes, 30 seconds, 11 minutes of running through stuff, covered all the shields that you really need. Now these next ones that I'm going to fly through, I'm not even going to read what they do exact word for word necessarily, just because some of them are pretty wordy and some of them are pretty not the most useful. And I don't want to make this a 30-minute long video. Affect Mind, cancels Bad Feeling Have I, which might be a card that people would play if Darkside was trying to shield bust. And then also this is, just know that this is something for lightsaber combat. Unita, probably Unita and No Escape. Oh, actually, hold on. Okay. I find your lack of faith disturbing is the dark side equivalent of Affect Mind. It's actually a little bit more relevant because Gunite is a go-to for shield busting strategies. So just know that Gunite is shielded and that Bad Feeling of I is shielded, and you'll figure it out. Unita and No Escape are leftovers for Diamond Sight shenanigans. Sometimes you'll play it if your opponent is playing a random Diamond Sight. The Republic no longer functions, and Vote of No Confidence, pull those out against Senate. Sentries, Yavin Sentry sees a little more play against Destroyer droids. I can't think of a deck that Death Star Sentry would be relevant, but if they're playing non-uniques, just make sure that you remember that Jawas and Tusken Raiders are immune to these shields. They make their non-uniques a little more expensive. Like I said, I'm just flying through these. Your insight serves you well, and we'll let fate decide. Or no, that's the wrong one. Must be cannot hide forever. Yeah, your insight serves you well, and you cannot hide forever are your pod racing shields. If your opponent is playing pod racing, you'll play them. That's what mostly this rarely column here is mostly just for very specific times. And I am realizing that I missed a couple of dark side shields on the sometimes column. A useless gesture is your shield for watch your step. Makes it cost extra for watch your step to play stuff from the lost pile. Code clearance. This is actually a really important one. If your opponent is playing Harvest, especially, But if you do see them playing like an individual card that will retrieve something like on the edge or something like that, if you get that on a verify, this will hose their retrieval for the rest of the game if you can catch that. And there should be one more. Oh no, that fanfare I accidentally have on there twice. Okay, so and then we have your ship, which is, and we'll let fate decide, which are your sabak shields. If you catch that your opponent is playing sabak, they're probably playing shield busting, so you may not even want to play the shield in that situation. By the way, shield busting is the strategy of tricking your opponent into playing, because you only get 4 shield pulls per game, into playing all of their shields. It's not necessarily a good strategy, but it can be fun. Just kind of watch out if your opponent is playing a deck that is shield busting, because you might end up in a situation where you run out of shield pulls and and they end up retrieving for free all game or something like that. So we'll run through the never. These are pretty much, I don't think I've seen any of these actually played in a game. We already talked about clumsy and stupid. Planetary defenses protects you from proton bombs and program trap and commence primary ignition decks. Nobody plays those. A close race is an outdated pod racing shield. The other pod racing shield is better. Another pathetic life form does something with non-unique aliens, but it doesn't come up ever. He can go out of his business as a Brangus Glee shield, which was popular way back in the day, but it is not popular now. Optimism is an operatives shield. We don't need to worry about them. Crossfire does a bunch of stuff that I've never seen come up as relevant. Protects your force generation at Endor. We already talked about failure at the cave. A useless gesture, non-virtual. The only reason that this one matters is that you want it in your deck. I think it's the only one where you need both the virtual and the non-virtual in your deck. And it cancels some stuff. If you're in a situation where you need to be playing this, your opponent should probably just basically be telling you. I've never seen it played. Leave them to me is your operatives shield. Wipe them out is the weird non-unique alien thing that doesn't really matter. And you've never won a race is the outdated pod racing shield. So there we go. Under 20 minutes. I've gone over every single shield in the entire game. Nothing to it. Again, those first 5 are going to be the most important, 5 for each side. And then those sometimes will also be important, but you do need all of them. You want to have all of them just in case. If your opponent is playing a card that's shielded, they will probably let you know, or else they'll say, "Do you have an action?" and then look at you funny. But you'll pick up the remaining shields. Just get those first 2 columns down. All right. Thanks everyone for listening or watching. I guess this is a video. Until next time, good luck, have fun, and no reverts.